Hey everybody, hope you're well. There is a
Yeah, this is Wilson Riles.
Oh, hey, how are you? Awesome. How are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I am actually just quite fine. Hey, I went on live. I was going to pre-brief you, but I'll just say that as my viewers know, this is your platform, and I know I have a prepared statement which I can read for you, or you want to read, but I want people to hear your story, and uh, I got the City of Oakland statement as well, but I want people to hear what happened to you.
Okay, okay.
Let's just take what happened. And first of all, I want to say, folks, a lot of people aren't reporting this, and they should. This man is history. This is legend. He is the first. He is the first. True. He's the first African American ever elected as a public official in California history. So I just want you to keep that in mind, Wilson. I'm blessed to have you on. But what happened? What happened to you?
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. Actually, I'm a junior. It was Wilson Riles Sr.,
Ah,
my father, who was elected statewide in California,
I
and
stand
was the
corrected.
first person. I'm very proud of that. And I took, his reputation. And actually, when I first ran for the city council, people thought they were voting for him because they wondered why the state superintendent wanted to run for Oakland City Council, but they supported me, and I got elected, and have been struggling with the issues around the city for some time. What happened was that this is essentially the end of a 4-year process that my family and I and friends have been having about us doing sweat lodges and community services within the backyard of my own property that I own. A very small group of neighbors neighbors got a unanimous decision in our favor from the Planning Commission. Part of that decision was appealed to the City Council, and the City Council denied that appeal and accepted the decision of the Planning Commission that we had a right to do what we were doing, and we had met all of the legal and other kinds of requirements. So I thought it was all over. And then a couple of weeks ago, someone from zoning came by indicating that there was a complaint about the ceremonies we were having in our backyard. I don't know why he didn't have the knowledge about the decision that the Planning Commission and the council had made, but apparently he didn't. I asked him to go and check that out. Later on, I talked to him on the telephone. He said he had found out that we had a right to do that, but that he was going to require me to get some permits for the temporary structures that we have in our backyard as part of what we are doing. All of that was also included in the agreement that we had with the Planning Commission and the City Council. All those structures were put into the design review that we had to submit. But we also agreed that if there were anything that we were doing or that we needed to do that required a permit, that we would take out a permit before doing that. But the law was very clear, and I had looked at it early in this process, that temporary structures do not require permits. So I was a little upset that at the end of this process, after going all through this, the zoning department was still trying to shut us down for something that we had a legal right to do. And I asked them to look at the code because a permit was not required. They refused to do that. I went down to the zoning department to meet with this inspector on Thursday morning, again asking him to look at the code about that requirement. He refused to look at the code. I was frustrated. I was arguing with him that that wasn't right. He was supposed to be following the law. He wasn't supposed to be doing something because somebody told him to do it or some other complaint. He was supposed to be looking at the law that he's supposed to be implementing. He got up, went back to talk to his supervisor. He said, waited for 15 minutes. He came back, sat down and said he still hadn't looked at the codes and he wasn't going to look at the codes. So I, again, being very frustrated, told him how ridiculous and astounding this was, that he didn't bother to actually follow the law he was supposed to be implementing. He stopped talking to me, turned his head away, got up, and walked back to the area where the staff has their desks. I got up, followed him. The door was open. I didn't push the door. I didn't push him. I didn't touch anybody. I didn't threaten anybody. I walked through the door and told the folks there I wanted to talk to the supervisor. And I stayed there until the supervisor came. We walked back through the door, sat back down at the desk. I talked to the supervisor about the issues that I had and my concerns that the law wasn't being followed. And he said, I'll get back to you. So I stood up and started leaving the office and down this narrow hall, and 4 police officers came up. They were looking around trying to find somebody who was to tell them why they were there and what they were supposed to do. Apparently nobody did. And so I continued walking, and one of the officers blocked me from leaving. They didn't say, we're going to arrest you. They didn't say what the charge would be or anything. They just blocked me, physically blocked me. I tried to move around the person who was blocking me, and he grabbed me, and other officers grabbed me, started pushing my arms behind my back, trying to put cuffs on me, tried to trip me, and did trip me, and we all fell down on the floor. And they were eventually able to get cuffs on me, and they took me out and hustled me down to a cruiser in front of the building. So, that's the incident that took place that Thursday morning.
Well, so we're off with a former councilman, Wilson Riles. Well, you mean to tell me at no point they didn't A, tell you why they were there, B, tell you what you were going to be arrested for, or C, read you your Miranda rights?
No, none of that.
Oh. And then on top of that, when you left the office, you had no idea a 911 call was going to be initiated by the city.
When I was standing on the other side of the door, someone said, we're going to call the police. And I said, well, if you're going to call the police, you're going to call the police. I want to talk to the supervisor.
Yeah.
Please have a supervisor come up. And so then we went back to the door once the supervisor came. So they had indicated that they were going to call the police.
So did they say why? It was just like a knee-jerk thing, like, we're going to call the police.
They wanted to call the police. They wanted me to get out of that office. They wanted me to leave the office altogether. So here I am making a justified complaint. And their response is, we're going to call the police.
And I say that because, I just have to add that that's happened to me. That happened to me a couple of times. And what I did in my reaction was I said, well, I'm calling the police too, and I'll call the police, and the police will show up at once. But for the city of Oakland to do this sort of thing, and the 2 gentlemen that did it, are named, but this, I want to get one of those Michael Legault, I believe, and that's the person.
Legault, yeah.
Yeah, Legault, yeah. And then the other person is a Richard Fielding. And
right, so he's the supervisor.
Yeah, he's a supervisor. And what the city of Oakland released this statement, which I'd like your response to. If it says, we recognize the arrest of former council member Wilson Riles in the Oakland zoning department raises deep community concerns. This unfortunate incident evokes 2 disturbing national realities that weigh heavily on all of us. The use of force by police against Black men, as well as a heightened fear of workplace violence. Mr. Riles was detained following a 911 call regarding a city employee who reported a hostile man. This is what I'm just reading what was sent to me
Right.
by Karen Boyd, who's the communications rep for the city of Oakland. Okay, a hostile man had chased a city inspector into the restricted staff only area. Mr. Riles was later arrested on suspicion of battery on a police officer. After reviewing incident reports and personal digital recording device footage from the involved officers, Chief Ann Kirkpatrick has ordered a thorough internal affairs investigation of the incident, as well as encouraged Oakland's Community Police Review Agency to conduct an independent investigation. In order not to compromise the integrity of these critical investigations, the city of Oakland will not be releasing further information about this incident until these investigations are sufficiently complete. An internal affairs investigation has been launched to review every aspect of this incident. Employee safety and the right to feel secure in the workplace is paramount to the city of Oakland, as is the right of all African American residents to feel safe and free from police bias, which is deeply rooted in this country's racist history. I have to add one more thing. I've known Wilson, I think, since 1988, and I have never in my entire life, that's a long time, council member, have ever heard you associated with anything like what they're accusing. What's your response? And I'm saying that just straight out as I'm a blogger. I'm a vlogger, not a journalist. Okay, I'm not trying to be objective. I have a personal bias because the way I've been treated as a black person as well, and in Oakland too. So what's your response to this?
Well, I mean, there is a need to understand that racism rears its head in a number of ways. Clearly, there is individual personal racism and acts by individuals. But because racism has been around so long in this country and in this city, that it's also institutionalized. It's deeply institutionalized in the department and the police department. Part of that is the approach and training that police officers get. I didn't know how deeply it was also ingrained in the other departments of the city, like the zoning department. So it is there, and it is unconscious in all of us, no matter whether you're black, white, or whatever. The cultural racism that exists in this country is in all of us. And that's why someone who's African American who complains about something is considered to be a threat. You know, if you're talking about workforce violence, it isn't mostly African Americans that are bringing about workforce violence, bringing guns to their offices and shooting people. That's mostly white folks. But because I was there standing as a black man and was disturbed and angry about the way that I was being treated, all of a sudden I'm a threat to workforce violence? I'm a council member. I know what these policies are. I know what's going on. I was very clear that I was being unjustly treated, and I wasn't willing to just go away and accept that. That doesn't make me a threat to anybody.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Have you heard from the city of Oakland or Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf? Because I gave Libby your cell number to call. So Libby can't say she doesn't have your number. Have you heard from the mayor?
A few minutes ago, I got a call from the police chief, Kirkpatrick. She wanted to personally tell me that they were dropping all the charges.
That's good.
So they want this to go away. She did her investigation. She knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. So, of course, they're dropping the charges. But that doesn't change the fact that these institutions were going treating a whole lot of folks who look like me and otherwise in some totally disrespectful, suppressive ways. And so I'm not through with it. I'm going to continue to try to make some changes.
Yeah, and speaking of which, did she offer to fire the officers involved because you were assaulted by them, according to what you told us?
No, she didn't offer that. But I'm taking this before the before the police commission, and so it's not done with.
Oh, by the way, Karen Boyd, I reached out to her and I texted her and I asked if those specific men in the zoning department had any diversity training. Her statement was the city has diversity training for all employees. My response back was, hey, Karen, I want to know if those two specific men had any diversity training. And I asked because, and I'll just be very blunt, I went to what appeared to be the Facebook page of Mr. Michael Legault, and all the photos he had on his Facebook page, there were no black folks, all white. And so my thought is, you know, if you're white and your association are only with a white person and this comes up, what's in the back of your mind? It doesn't matter if you like Snoop Dogg or, you know, Chance the Rapper or anything. That's very common in today's society, you know, for someone white to enjoy hip hop, but then also have some very racist point of views about somebody black. And that's actually played out all the way back to, you remember Do the Right Thing, right? That's on pop culture. So my point is, she didn't get back to me about an answer about those men and whether or not they had diversity training. And I don't know, what is diversity training anyway? Do you know, being a former Oakland employee, how does that go? Is it done, you know, more than once?
No, this is not a one-time thing that you can do and it corrects the problem. Like I say, even if someone takes a bit of time to kind of reconsider what they're doing and why they're doing it and why they're reacting to certain people in one way and those in another, even if someone goes online and takes one of those diversity tests, which bring out your unconscious racism, that's not the end of the process, because you get essentially slid back in to a racist culture. And so it starts again to reinforce those kind of racist bad habits and to not deal with that unconscious level. So it's a constant thing that we have to do and remind one about in every opportunity that it comes up. Even if you're sitting at a table with all your white relatives and white friends and it comes up, I would hope that conscious people would respond to that and highlight that so that we can all have a chance to move towards a society that is more egalitarian and loving and sensitive to one another, so that our whole community will be bettered by what efforts we all make in order to make a difference in that regard. And it's not a one-time thing like you get in a diversity training.
And we're on with Oakland Councilman Wilson Riles, former Councilman Wilson Riles. I also want like your response to this, because this is the latest. I call this zoning while black. And the reason why I put it in the barbecue Becky or the driving while black or that category is because approximately 2 months ago, there was an incident that happened in San Francisco where a black man was waiting on his friend to come down. He was trying to go in. The fellow stopped him, and he didn't really want to give him all the information and details, but he really was waiting for a friend, white, and he was with, and not only that, the man who stopped him was an employee with one of the tech companies with his son. And so his son is basically saying, Daddy, he seems like a nice guy. Why are you bothering? What? And then the fellow said, hey, you're not going to answer my question. I'm going to call the police. And
right, I heard about that.
Right. And this is, and if it isn't that, then it's Jennifer Schulte, Barbecue Becky, who's harassing Kinsey Smith over at Lake Merritt, claiming that she owns Lake Merritt and she paid $5.7 million to buy it, which in and of itself tells you she's off her rocker to begin with, and then basically called 911 on Kinsey. And I told Kinsey, you should have called the police on her because she's harassing you for 3 hours. So my point is, why is it that all of a sudden it seems like you have people in Oakland who are white who are using the police as some sort of weapon when they don't want to hear you? You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to hear what you have to say, so I'm going to call the police.
Right. So I have to assume that at some level, maybe unconsciously, people are beginning to recognize the history of this country, own them on how they behave and what they believe, and there's some unconscious feelings of guilt going on. I graduated with a psychology degree from Stanford, so I have some insight on this stuff. And it's very clear that people respond almost without thinking about it because of these guilt feelings that come up and the fear that gets generated by the nature of our culture. Surely police officers are very clear about that. They see a white man taking a phone out of his pocket and they don't shoot. But they see a black man taking a phone out of his pocket in the same way, and they shoot without even thinking about it.
Have you heard from the zoning people for an apology? Because as far as I'm concerned, both zoning individuals should be made to apologize to you or be fired. And there should be a complete review regarding whether or not they actually did undergo diversity training, because I personally don't believe they did. That's me. And Karen Boyd has
I will follow up on that with some of the council members. I haven't heard anything from zoning or planning.
And as well as the mayor too. The mayor really should have called you right off the bat as soon as I gave her your number. That should have been her first call. And I have to say I'm deeply sorry this happened to you, Wilson, because I can't. I mean, of all the people that would happen to, you're the last person among the last people I would even associate with that kind of behavior. And I think, you know, it almost seems like also an attack on somebody who's black and intelligent, who has a great argument, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, your argument's too good, I'm gonna call the police on you. You know, I mean,
right.
You know, because take us back to the real reason for this, and it's you're trying to build a temporary structure in your own backyard. I saw the photograph of it. It looks like a harmless thing. What's going on again? I don't quite get it.
It is a very harmless thing. It's a very positive community thing. It's a space that has a lot of trees and a lot of plants. We're generating a lot of positive oxygen into the atmosphere over here, where it's mostly concrete and cars. So it almost seems like a religious experience to walk on this land and breathe in that oxygen and feel so much more comfortable with yourself and your body. And the birds are singing and folks are really relaxing, because here's a little bit of nature right in the midst of this place where there's very little nature, or where nature is hardly surviving at all. So that's what we have been about. We've got a farm, we've got the yurts. The yurts are round, so it's not a square structure. It's just light on the land. So there's a spirit that comes from that helps to reconnect us back to the ancestors of this land, the Ohlone, who used to have sweat lodges for thousands and thousands of years before anybody else got here, and where they were in such a good relationship with this land that when the northerners or folks from the east finally got here, they thought this was paradise, because the land and the animals and everything were in such great harmony because of the care that the Ohlone had given and their prayers that they did in the sweat lodge, which the Aztecs called temescals. And even one neighborhood of Oakland is called a temescal after this religious ceremony.
So and a yurt is Y-U-R-T, right? And that's the dome structure, right?
Right. Yeah, it comes from the Mongols, who are also an indigenous people, who were a mobile people. So they moved their houses around, and they wear these round dome structures that are very comfortable. And kind of fit in much better with what's going on. So we had the yurts, and then we had this one neighbor who was a religious bigot who started yelling across the fence that we were pagans and calling us all kinds of nasty racist names, attacking my granddaughter.
What?
Calling her all kinds of names.
So that's where all this started, really. Is with
that's where this all began.
So tell that again. Basically, again, what happened with that neighbor?
We had a neighbor. She was, I would say, off her rocker. She was a religious bigot. She was an outright personal racist, individual racist. She would yell across the fence when my son-in-law would be out in the backyard clearing the bushes and thorns and everything. Why are you here? As if she owned the land. And then calling him all kinds of racist names, would attack me. When we were in the yurt, we would be, my wife is has a master's in divinity and was teaching at the Pacific School of Religion. Some of her students would come over to participate in the sweat lodge ceremony. So as they were coming out of the sweat lodge ceremony, these Christians, she would call them pagan, and she's a Christian, and why are you doing that? Stop doing that in our backyard, in your backyard, and then calling every department she could think of, public health, the animal control, the health department, and then eventually she called zoning, and zoning responded. And zoning came out and tried to find every little thing that they could lay on us to try to stop us from doing things that we had a right to do. I mean, it's like when they arrest somebody, the district attorney, he piles up the charges as high as he can to get you to accept a lesser charge for something that you didn't do.
So let me get
same process.
Let me get this straight. Basically, this person, do you mind using your neighbor's name? Your choice.
No, she's not there anymore. I don't want to.
All right,
Kay,
cool.
Kay is her first name.
Okay, but it sounds like basically she calls or zoning, and then zoning comes back and gives this sort of pseudo-intellectual overlay to her racist reasons why she doesn't want you to be there. In other words, it's the common habit of somebody inventing a reason to justify their racism.
Exactly.
Okay, so where are we with the zoning department right now? And by the way, are you going to get your $20,000 back that they made you spend to get out?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I don't think so. We have an agreement with the city for us to do what we're supposed to do. We have a design review project, a description that's been accepted. We have a variance that's been accepted, and we have a conditional use permit that's been accepted. So all of those things are in place. What I don't know is whether zoning is going to come around again and try to throw something new on us to harass us about something that has been accepted. There's no reason for them to do it, but it seems like it doesn't take a reason for them to do it.
That ought to be against the law. I've heard too many business owners and property managers and property owners tell me over the years that a city of Oakland, an inspector, a zoning inspector, or a health and safety code inspector will come in, make one round of inspections, then come back and ask for something they didn't ask for before. There ought to be a law to just basically say, look, you do your inspection once, you lock in everything, you don't add anything new. If you didn't point it out the first time, don't point it out the second time. I mean, what are your thoughts? Because it's being used selectively to favor certain people, and as is the case in your instance, not favor other people.
Right. Yeah. So definitely something needs to be done. I think we need some new legislation to stop that kind of activity and to have a place for complaints to be brought and legitimately dealt with to correct the behavior of the department. It seems like an individual resolution of a specific case does not change this behavior in the department. So I'm going to be trying to work with other council members to see if we can structure something. I don't know if it would be something like the police commission, but something where it's open for citizens to come and lay out their complaints about what's going on, and for there be enough force behind that to change the behavior, and the rules and regulations in terms of how the city staff people function.
That's a great idea. I have a name for it: the City Administration Commission. How about that? Or City Admin Commission.
It sounds good to me.
It could be broad-based. Hey, I know you're busy, and what's the next step here right now? You said council members, but the next weekend, what can we do to help? I'm getting the word out. This is a live stream. This is broadcast, and it's more you're talking than me. What are the next steps, and what would you like people to do?
Well, I'm going to be bringing this complaint before the police commission. I don't have a date for that right now. I'm sitting down with my attorneys and doing that and trying to get a copy of the police report still, even though they've dropped the charges, so that we can bring that properly before the police commission. What I would hope that folks would do would be to stay awake, keep their ears open, to understand that these are problems that are not going to go away, and that we need to learn one to another to listen to one another with some bit of humility, and to join together with our neighbors in order to create the kind of conditions that are good for all of us. I think we need to continue to struggle to get to that place. And when they hear that we're bringing something before the city council in order to create some kind of response structure or correction structure for the zoning department or any other department of the city, I hope folks will find some time, take the time to come around in any way that they can to support it. Any individual effort on the part of any of us, I think, will go a long way to moving all of us to a better place in this city that we all love.
Yeah, well said. Hey, one other question too. How is it in your view that we've come to this? How has Oakland changed? Because my thought is we've lost our soul, and I don't feel like I know what the city is anymore. What's going on?
Well, I think we're under some severe economic crisis. Definitely comes forward in terms of the housing situation and the homeless. We're also under the umbrella of the idiocy of our president and all that we're hearing whenever we turn on the news about that idiocy. We're all unnerved about it, anxious about it. Some folks are sliding into depression about it. And so it's that kind of pressure, which is then doubled and tripled when you end up being swept into a criminal justice system that is itself unjust. So I would hope people would stop, take a breather, whether they do Native American prayer or meditation or Buddhism, or whether they just do yoga and exercise or run around the block. We all have to find ways to take care of ourselves in that kind of situation and be present and open to one another. And I think that we can get through this and hopefully change the direction and the structure of where we're going to be going in a better place.
It's well said. Council member, I really thank you. And again, I'm really sorry this happened to you.
Thank you, Zennie, man. I appreciate you, man, very much.
Appreciate you too. God bless you too. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Okay.
Right.
Hey, Wilson, hold on a second. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to put this live stream off. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in. Please share this around. And Subscribe to Zennie62 on YouTube and bookmark Oakland News Now, Oakland's only daily blog.